This video is best viewed in full screen mode, and on YouTube that's this icon right here. And if you have a high bandwidth connection, you also want to watch it in HD, which is this icon right here. This video goes over the queries menu here, and you can query for several items that are automatically built into the system. There are 4 different what we call warnings. There's a warning for the judgment expiring. There's a warning for it's time to bill the judgment debtor. There's a warning where you have an action that's due. And you have a warning where the judgment debtor's payment is past due. And you could query for any one of these individual warnings, and it'll search the system and find all records that had any one of these particular ones. Or you can select this option here, and it'll look for records that have any one of these 4 warnings. So if we search for all warnings, you'll see that we got 4 records. The first one is action needs to be taken. And what that means is that you have an action over here. Today's date's October 15th, 2009. And you have an action date, and that action date has expired. So this warning comes up here. Go to this next record, and it actually has 2 warnings on it. And by the way, anytime you see this yellow up here, that means there's a warning on the record, this yellow background. And it'll always list what the warnings are. In this case, we have 2 warnings. One is the action needs to be taken, which is today, actually. Today's date is 10/15, so there's an action that's due today. And then over here, if you look at the judgment tab, you'll see that this judgment is getting close to being expired. And it's within 36 days away. The system by default will warn you when it's 90 days from a judgment expiring. But if you go under the user preferences, you can bring up the user preferences form, and you can change that to whatever you want. So if you want to be warned 120 days in advance, you can do that too. And then the next one is it's time to bill the judgment debtor. And if you notice here, you got a date due on the bill for 10/30, and your bill reminder says 15 days before the due date, you want to send them a bill, and that's actually today. We need to send them out a bill today. So since this date is blank, it's saying, hey, it's 15 days within the due date, and you haven't sent out a bill yet, so you get the time to bill the judgment debtor warning. And then over here, last but not least, we have the judgment debtor's payment is past due. And that's because you billed them. There was a payment due on 10/1/09, and they haven't paid yet, so they are past due. Now, you may find yourself in a circumstance where you've given up on this judgment debtor making payments to you, and you don't want to get this warning all the time because you're already aware of it and there's nothing you can really do about it. So what you can do is you can just turn this payment plan off, and when this is unchecked, then you will no longer get the judgment debtor payment is past due warning for this record, or the warning that says it's time to bill the judgment debtor. And if you notice here, we're record number 4. If we go here and then go back, you'll see that warning went away, and that's because this is no longer checked. And anytime you've done a search or a query, you're going to end up with a subset of records. And that's what this yellow background means. This means that you're not viewing all the records in the database. You're viewing a subset. In this particular case, you're viewing all the records that have a warning on it. And all you got to do is hit the clear filter button, and then that'll take you back to all the records in the database. Another thing you can do here is you can search for all errors, and that'll bring you up all the records that have an error. And if you notice this, we got 2 things going on here. One, we got that yellow background that we talked about because we're not viewing all the records. And here we got this pinkish red background. And this is just a visual cue that there is something wrong with this record. There's an error on it. And whenever you have an error on the record, this menu here lights up, and this number here represents how many errors you have on that record. And if you click on that menu, it'll bring you up a list of all the errors, and it'll give you pretty good instruction on exactly what is going on, and so you can get around to fixing it. The problem is the payment is entered, but the date is missing, and it's on the payments tab, and it's on the payments table, and the field is the JD paid date. So if you go over here and you look, the JD paid date on the payments tab in this table is blank, and the system brings up an error because it needs to know what the date was, because it cannot calculate the interest properly until the date is entered. So now you notice I put in a date, and voila, the error goes away. I'm going to undo that because I want that error to be in there for demonstration purposes. And then I go over here to the next record that there's an error, and I go look at this error, and I see that the interest rate information for the state of Florida is missing. You may get an error that comes up that says something about the interest rate info, and it could be one of two things. It could be in this case that there's no information entered at all for the state of Florida, or you might get one where it says it's out of date. And if you look over here in the tab /form, it says state interest rates, and it says area Florida. So what this is telling you is that you need to go to the state interest rate form and get your information for Florida up to date. And the way you do that is you go over here to the Windows menu, and you select state interest rates, and make sure your data is entered or up to date. You really shouldn't find it where the data is missing, because almost all these are filled out with the rollout of the program when you get it. But if you go here, it just means that something in the Florida state interest rates form is not filled out. And for information how this form works, there's a link here that'll give you a breakdown about everything about that. And just another word on errors is it searches all your data and just tries to sanity check it, make sure that everything makes sense. You know, if you have a payment made before the judgment was created, it's going to warn you. If your payment dates are out of order, it's going to warn you. It just does a sanity check for anything that I can find in there that just doesn't make sense. All right, and we're going to clear the filters again. That brings us back to our full 49 records. And probably the one that you're going to use the most is just this right here. You can come in anytime you open your database and say, show me all errors and warnings. And it's going to find all the records that basically need your attention. And in here we have 5 records. We got these 3 that have warnings. These first 3 here, warning, warning, warning. And then this one here has got an error, and that one there has got an error. So we'll clear those filters, and that's pretty much everything you need to know about how the queries menu works.